All right. Welcome to our inaugural VGA RiseUp dinner chat at Forest Creek. First, I'd like to thank our generous sponsors and partners, especially our friends at CIBC who made tonight's event possible. Let's give CIBC a big round of applause. I'd also like to recognize Mary Dutton and her staff here at Forest Creek, including Chef Frank Alois, for hosting us tonight. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the VGA Board of Directors and Advisory Board members who are in attendance, including the chairman of our board, Bob Peel, and his wife, Kathy. And from our advisory board team, Coach Urban Meyer, Mike Elliott and his wife Layla, and Tom Kilcheski. Additionally, I'd like to recognize our VGA team, including Joan Tishman, Sydney Cox, and Kathy Peel, and including Andy Davis and Aaron Helen from Team RiseUp for all their hard work behind the scenes to make tonight's event possible. Thank you, guys. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize my friends and fellow members of Forest Creek for supporting this event and believing in the power of giving back to our veteran community who has sacrificed so much for all of our freedoms, and understanding how critical it is for our youth to be influenced by positive role models and inspired by true leadership. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Finally, I'd like to recognize my beautiful wife, Rachel, and my son, Jackson, who support me unconditionally as I traverse the country pursuing my passion of impacting the veteran community through the game of golf. Our family couldn't be more proud to be members of the Pinehurst community and members of Forest Creek. So thank you, baby, for having us. To help kick off our dinner tonight, it's my distinct honor to bring up Patrick McKee, who's going to sing America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful, far, spacious skies, far amber waves of green, for purple mountain, majesty. But now wait a minute, Josh, what we're talking about? America. America, sweet America. You know, God done shed his grace on thee. He crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Feel free to sing along, you know the words. America, I love you, America. You see, my God, he done shed his grace on thee. He crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh Lord, I thank you, Lord. Shining sea.
All right, if you could, please Please stay standing for Patrick McKee to do our national anthem. Patrick?
No, not Ray Charles style. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner wave, oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you.
Please be seated. All right. While your dinner is being served, I'd like to share a short video that highlights the essence of what the VGA is all about.
I think PTSD has a negative connotation to it. When you hear it, it just gives you a funny feeling. I think that post-traumatic growth is positive. It's a positive way to say that there's hope for these veterans that come back from difficult times and from hard experiences.
I was injured on March 8th, 2012 in Kandahar, pretty early on, 18 days into my deployment actually, and stepped on an IED. I lost both of my legs and suffered a bunch of internal injuries, a broken pelvis. The legs are the most obvious injury, but the internal injuries were the most complicated and severe. So most of my military career was actually spent at Walter Reed in the hospital recovering. But I'm very proud I served and glad I served, and I'll do it again.
Distraction is the biggest thing that golf really does. It focuses your attention away from your problems and back onto something constructive, even if that constructive thing is just going out and having fun. As soon as you start having fun again, you're really making headways into depression and PTSD symptoms.
Right now, 22 veterans commit suicide every day. It's a staggering number. It's an epidemic. With golf and veterans, I don't know, like I said, I think it saved my life.
So when I went in the Army, I did 3 tours in Iraq. So my unit, we did convoy security. 2007, we were out on a mission, and my truck was hit with an IED. And caused traumatic brain injury to me.
And then what happened?
In 2021, I was diagnosed with bone cancer. So now I got a different outlook on life. Every day I wake up, it's a blessing. Just want to live my life and be happy and try to make others happy. The VGA is incredible. You know, the VGAs gave me life. So last year, I was a team captain for Army at the Armed Forces Cup, and leading my team to victory was one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. And I've met people from every state, and I've got friends everywhere. And I love these guys. I love the VGA, what it represents.
We thrive on teamwork. And when we get out of the military, we are separated from our teams. We're together for 4 or 5 hours, golfing, laughing. Now you're my brother. It may keep a vet alive another day. That's why you have to have organizations like these. It's not about necessarily the golf. You get to be yourself finally. That's something a lot of vets haven't done in a long time.
A lot of men and women who serve around our country, they experience things that most human beings do not experience. And then they come back here and at times they feel lost. Veterans Golf Association is an organization that was created several years ago, and the purpose is that it's a community. Create this family around the great game of golf. And I think we all have an obligation to show the country what a veteran's all about. No greater way than the VGA.
The VGA has accomplished a lot in the last 10 years, and we are proud to call Pinehurst and Forest Creek our home. For those that don't know what we do, it sounds very simple. The VGA is a competitive golf league for veterans and their families. But we serve more than 44,000 members across this nation. And last year alone, we hosted more than 2,000 golf tournaments for veterans and their families. We've hosted national championships at iconic venues, such as Pinehurst No. 2, Olympic Club, the Greenbrier, Doral, Baltusrol, and most recently, Olympia Fields in Chicago, including nationally televised events on Fox Sports, and started this summer. The Golf Channel will be televising our inaugural Liberty Cup at Liberty National in New Jersey, the host site of the 2017 President's Cup. We're also proud to announce that due to the support of our sponsors, supporters, and donors like you, all of our national level events, including our Armed Forces Cup, our Armed Forces Cup at Champions Retreat in Augusta, our Liberty Cup, and our National Championship are free of charge to all veterans that qualify for them. And that's been our goal since day one. But the VGA goes much deeper than that. Our organization of 300 plus volunteer leaders offer every one of our members a shoulder to lean on and a friend to turn to, especially as they transition from the military to civilian life. Trust me, that is not an easy transition to do on your own. Our military community has an epidemic on its hands. We're losing 22 veterans a day to suicide. And at the VGA, we believe golf and camaraderie saves lives, because we use that as a mechanism to get veterans out of their basements and around like-minded individuals. And over the past 10 years, and having served over 44,000 members, the VGA has only lost 2 VGA members to suicide. And for us, we still feel that 2 is too many. So for those of you wishing to join the VGA mission, we've included a donation QR code on your tables. I encourage you to scan that code and pledge your support to the VGA so that we can continue to positively impact the veteran community through the powerful game of golf that all of us in this room love so much. So this time, as you're enjoying your dinner, it's my honor to introduce our military panelists, which are some of the best in the country. First, I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Andy Davis, the founder of the RiseUp Youth Football League, which is inspiring our next generation of youth leaders through sport.
RiseUp is a youth football program founded by U.S. military special operations veterans, psychologists, and football professionals to inspire positive outcomes for the mental and physical health of America's youth and their families. We are redefining youth sports, raising honorable athletes, and building the next greatest generation. RiseUp launched our first season in 2024, and we now provide year-long football programming for both boys and girls. We serve over 800 kids in our community, and the demand is growing. We have already reached a wait list for the upcoming season. Coaches and civic leaders from surrounding areas are pushing us to establish RiseUp leagues in their communities. Families are desperate for a positive vision of the future. This is a call to action. We need your help. Together, with your support, we can rise up.
Let's give a big round of applause to Lieutenant Colonel Andy Davis from RiseUp. It's a privilege to introduce our next military panelist, former RiseUp football coach and Medal of Honor recipient, Sergeant Major Thomas Payne.
Some moments define a man. Others reveal who he's been all along. In 2015, during a mission in northern Iraq, Sergeant Major Thomas Patrick Payne, serving as a member on a squad of United States Army Rangers, was part of a raid on an ISIS prison compound. More than 70 hostages were inside, men who intelligence believed were hours away from execution. The mission was urgent. The risk was extreme. As the assault began, gunfire erupted. Explosions tore through the compound, and then, inside the prison, fire. The building was burning. Smoke filled the air, visibility dropped. Time was running out. Payne and his team breached the structure and moved toward the cells. Inside, they found chaos, locked doors, panicked prisoners, and a situation collapsing by the second. He began forcing doors open, pulling hostages out, moving them to safety. But the fire kept spreading. At one point, the flames and heat became so intense that the order was given to withdraw. Payne didn't stop. He went back inside. Again and again, until everyone he could reach was out. By the end of that night, more than 70 lives had been saved. For those actions, he would receive the Medal of Honor, the highest award for valor in the United States. But that moment didn't come out of nowhere. Thomas Payne enlisted in the Army in 2002. He became an Army Ranger, earning a place among the Army's elite, and deployed 17 times to combat zones across Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond. He was wounded in action and returned to the fight. Because for him, service wasn't a phase, it was a commitment, a responsibility. And when the moment came when lives hung in the balance, he didn't hesitate. He moved forward and completed his mission with honor.
Let's give a big round of applause to Medal of Honor recipient, Sergeant Major Patrick Payne. Mic check. All right, so please continue eating. We're gonna have a little sidebar conversation while all of you guys are eating, and I just want to make a note that the Medal of Honor recipients that are still living in our country they should be revered as national treasures. And so, Pat, thank you so much. Most of you guys don't realize that Patrick is on the tail end of his MBA at Harvard University, and he's got a couple of weeks left until he can pass that. And Pat, thank you so much for joining us today. So in this panel, we're going to talk about leadership, and so a couple of things that we want to talk about. We've got two panels coming up. We've got a group of legendary coaches that are going to follow us, but we're going to talk from our panel about the military for a second and give you guys some opportunities to ask questions about it. So when veterans transition from the military to the civilian world, they leave environments where authority is clear, and they enter into ones that must be earned daily. So for us, and all the things that you've done, taking rank off the table, in your opinion, what actually makes people follow you?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. One, just want to say thanks to Andy for ran into a couple of my former players' parents, and so hearing you say, "Hey, Coach Payne, good to see you," it starts with community, and I think Andy brings that up. Having the opportunity to come back and just serve your community, that's where it starts. It starts with our youth right here at home. And so think about the process. So hopefully these kids can play for Coach Till. They know how to at least block and tackle by the time they get to you. You've got to redefine that a little bit. And so once Coach Till's done with them, they can pass them out to you, Coach Meyer. So that's where it starts right here. But for me, I try to live an extraordinary life and honor my teammates that are no longer here. We talked about veteran suicide. Actually, my teammate was one of the first ones from the VGA that ended up taking his life. And so I try to live an extraordinary life and honor my teammates that are no longer here. And so just serving as an Army Ranger, that's what I kind of claim. And then just serving my community. And it's a master's in public administration, not MBA, but we'll get through that. So I've got to get back to class tomorrow. So tomorrow's my last day of class. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Andy?
Yeah. Pat's incredible. You thank me, but Rise Up was built off the ideals that Pat lives and Pat aspires. Brother, it means the world to me that you flew back from this. Got finals early in the morning. Tomorrow morning he's going to fly back for. So thanks, brother. And Josh, thanks for putting this on, and to everyone that's here supporting this. I think it reflects my answer to that, in that, when you take off, rank or authority, leadership, really is about your authenticity of who you truly are as a person, right? And your ability to inspire and unite and motivate people. And those that do that best do that through true authenticity about who they are and the values that they represent. And as I've left service recently, in January, I just retired, every day I think it's a fight, because the more that you are put into leadership positions, you have to fight for humility, and you have to fight to be authentic about who you are and show what you truly care about and how you treat people. And because I think people see through that, when it's fake. And so as I transition here and as I look to leadership and what it means out of service, it's a fight to just be authentically me, love and care about my family and the people around me in life, and serve them in the most humble manner I can, and trust God's plan for us and move forward through that.
Yeah, I think. So Andy, that brings me to my next question, because it's really in parallel to that. So clarity under pressure is a trained skill. It's not a personality trait. So what does pressure mean to you now compared to when you were serving on the front lines, right? So there's two distinct different things. Pressure on the front lines and pressure now. And what does that look like for you? And Pat, if you don't mind answering that next.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks have heard the term, pressure is a privilege. And I look at pressure, in the term of clarity about what is most important to you, or what is most important in the moment, and what is most important to your life. And that is where I think I personally feel pressure just erases and removed and is eliminated. That goes back into your authenticity, right? When you can take a deep breath and you can focus on those around you that you care about and the things that are most important to you in life, the big building blocks of your life before those moments that are pressure, and that you're focused on serving, I think pressure really removes itself from the situation. And one thing the military does really well is learns how to train you at those really high pressure levels where no matter what's going on around you, the chaos and the violence and the that can occur in battle, I think you can see through the moments that, what's most important, to provide that clarity.
That's awesome. Pat, any input on that?
Yeah, so I like to use, in the military, we love our acronyms, so I like to use my own personal acronym that I've kind of downloaded leadership into 15 minutes for teams that I've had a chance to speak to. So I use a SCARS analogy. One, it starts with our standards. In the Special Operations Command, our standards don't waver. Next is your steadfast commitment to building your own individual capability. So that's SC. Then next is holding each other accountable. Not only in the team room, that's where if you police up your team room, then you can police up your life. Not only inside the team room, but holding each other accountable outside of that team room as well. And then finally, it's your results-based organization. So it doesn't matter where you go, you're gonna have, are you producing the results? all the way from youth football, so no one likes losing. So, producing those results early, it does matter.
Absolutely. All right, so thank you guys. So the last question to this panel, the best leaders demand excellence and earn loyalty. I think this is a really good question because as you transition in the military, rank is one thing, and then earning respect is a different thing. And so, in your opinion, can a leader be both respected and liked at the same time? Andy, I'll start with you.
I think the answer is yes, but the greatest leaders that I've ever worked for did not think about or did not care about being liked at all, right? So it's funny how that paradigm works, right?
That's a good question, right?
Yeah, they weren't trying to be liked. They were trying to be themselves. They were trying to serve others. They were trying to set the example and lead by example in everything that they did. And then I think that naturally follows, right? When people see someone leading from the front, leading by example, being authentically themselves, humbly serving other people, giving themselves, sharing and suffering, and always learning, always questioning, always respecting, treating people the way they want to be treated, those basic fundamentals, I think naturally they are loved, not liked, right? They become a loved and a cherished and a treasured leader, and I think they exist, and they do it by not even trying.
Right. Thanks, Andy. Pat, can a leader be respected and liked at the same time?
Yeah, I'll kind of redirect that a little bit. I try to take the best attributes from the leaders that I've served with and apply them to my life. But when you look back, when I reflect on my career, it started with standards, but also the best units that I've ever had an opportunity to serve with, it also came down to discipline. And then, willing to push your training to a new limit. And then also the ones that are the best commanded as well. And so turning to officers like you guys, but then also tell the commanders as well, take pride in your mission statement, because that young ranger is willing to give his life to complete your mission statement for if there are any young officers out here. So that would be my advice to them.
Yeah, I just want to add, Pat, you made me think of something. It's a great response. You guys have heard of that disappointed dad analogy. Those best leaders that I think people still like and respect have an incredible way of holding you accountable very directly and very frankly. So they don't necessarily try to be liked, but they are so good at telling you, hey, where you're wrong and where you can get better and where you can improve. And when they say that to you, you feel that, that response of, man, I just don't want to disappoint that person, and I want to be better, and I want to improve. So they hold you accountable, and they do it in such a way, that makes you respect that. And I can only imagine in Coach Cam and Coach Meyer here and Coach Harp, the type of men that those guys are that are coaches. They have to push others. They have to hold them accountable. Sometimes they have to tell people, a lot of times they have to tell people things they don't want to hear. But great leaders can do that and still be respected, right?
Yeah, I'm going to brag on just the RiseUp youth football program. I've had a chance to travel this country, speak to over 10 different football teams, and I can tell you right now, RiseUp is the best youth football program in the country, hands down.
Let's go.
And what's really awesome about the coaching staff, they're going to be the guys that this country turns to when the mission lands on the president's desk. Then they're scheming it against each other to, beat each other on Saturday, which is a lot of fun. It gives you a lot of purpose and drive. And I don't know who has, I always had a blast, coaching these young men, which is great. So they gave me a purpose in life. And I just want to say, thank you to the parents that are out there. Your kids are awesome. And then, we're going to turn them over to Coach Till, and they can push them to a new limit.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. I think that's really interesting because, I've known Pat for 3 or 4 years now, and without Pat, I don't meet Andy, right? And finding out about your kids and what their travel schedules are and all the things that you're doing, it doesn't lead me to Andy, and it doesn't lead us to this night here at Forest Creek. And so Pat, your passions and all the things that you do outside of, your daily grind with all of your family members is just incredible, man. And your passion for our country, I'm proud to say that I know you, and I'm very proud of all the different people that you've connected me to along this journey. So thank you very much for just being an incredible, inspirational American. And honestly, that goes with or without the Medal of Honor. I mean, it's just if you spend 10 minutes with this guy, you just know that he's one of the greatest Americans that you're ever going to get a chance to meet. So if you get a chance to meet him tonight, please shake his hand. Andy, so tonight we've had an opportunity to spend some time, talking about, the next evolution of youth sports in Moore County. And do you want to talk a little bit about what your plans, from Rise Up and then, Rise Up Moore County and all of those things? What's the next evolution of what you're trying to create here in Moore County?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I'm going to start with our mission statement, and it's on some of the banners up here. Rise Up is building the greatest generation that has ever existed in the history of the world. And I know that is super bold, and a lot of people laugh when they hear that because they're like, man, that's pretty audacious, Andy. And I'm like, you're damn right it's audacious. Because who is going to speak that type of belief system into our kids if we don't, right? Amen. Let's go. And so we start with that up front. We are building a generation of children because, it's no secret that there is a youth mental health crisis in this country. The direction our country has been headed is not in a good place with our kids. I think that ship is being corrected, but it's everything that you can measure: anxiety, substance abuse, self-harm, depression, suicides, right? And then if you extrapolate that up to 18 to 24-year-old men, they're not moving out of the house, they're not getting jobs, they're not having relationships, they're not getting married, they're not having babies, they're not going to college, they're not joining the military at historic levels, every one of those. That should be concerning. It's concerning to me. My beautiful wife, Erica, and I have 7 kids. Yeah. And
Catholic.
So, yeah, Catholic. Doing our part. We deeply and passionately care about the future of this country, right? As you all do for being here tonight. I mean, I still have chills and goosebumps from Patrick McKee's America the Beautiful. If we could give another round of applause there for Mr. McKee.
Patrick, thanks, buddy.
So Pat and I have served together for a really long time. I mean, we started back in around 2008 in 1st Ranger Battalion when I first met Pat, and then reconnected later in our careers. I lost both of my parents when I was a little kid. My dad died when I was a year old, and my mom died of leukemia when I was just about to turn 7. And I was not on a great path in life until I met my first football coach, my first coaches, right? And those guys changed my life. I mean, I was headed to who knows where, and I had so many coaches say, Andy, redirect that energy that you have, redirect that leadership that you have. We see something in you, you can do better. And with their help, they got me into college, and they got me an ROTC scholarship. They got me into the Army and to believe in myself and inspired to do better. And I bring that up to say that, what we've endeavored to do with Rise Up to build the next greatest generation starts with something that seems to have been forgotten in America, and that's the value of football coaches to our society, to our young men. And that starts with a guy like Coach Pat Payne here, who was, from our first season coaching some of our kids and changed a ton of kids' lives. And then, to speak to the coaches that are here, we've got 2 of the head high school coaches in Moore County here. Coach Nick Eddins over here from Pinecrest High School, and Coach Brian Till from Union Pine.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
You know, and that works its way up to the incredible coaching legends that we're about to introduce here that speaks to what we're trying to do at Rise Up. You know, how we're trying to build the next greatest generation is by inspiring and uniting behind football coaches and teaching things like courage and resilience and agency and self-determination, all of these character traits that seem to be lost in young men and young people in America writ large. We want to re-inspire that, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it through amazing men like Pat and other veterans and other coaches and great people who are willing to change the status quo of youth sports, of education, and of child development in America and get it on the right path. And we're going to start it here in Moore County with Rise Up.
Those are facts. So let's give a big round of applause for Sergeant Major Patrick Payne and Andy Davis being a part of our military panel. All right. It's an honor to introduce our next group of panelists who are going to give expert opinions on coaching and football. It's my pleasure to introduce former West Point head football coach, Tom Harp.
There are places where tradition runs deep, where commitment, discipline, and duty are part of something larger. At West Point, and in rivalries like Army-Navy, the field becomes more than a place to compete. It's a reflection of shared sacrifice, of preparation, and of a bond that lasts long after the final whistle. It's not just about winning. It's about representing something greater and becoming something greater because of it.
It's the only game that everyone's playing in it, willing to die for everyone who's watching it.
Because in the end, the true impact isn't measured in a score. It's measured in the lives that are shaped, the character that is built, and the brotherhood that endures. That kind of legacy is built by coaches who understand their role goes far beyond the game. Tom Harp was one of those men. He devoted his life to developing young men through football, instilling discipline, demanding accountability, and shaping leaders whose lives reflected what they learned under his guidance. He didn't just coach teams, he shaped lives, and that legacy endures.
Coach Harp, congratulations on a great career and being a part of the long gray line and the legacy of Army football. All you've done for football players throughout your career, and especially those cadets, building leaders of character here at West Point, all the players and the lives that you touched, just means so much. Love seeing your picture with all the coaches out here in the Hall of Fame and right back here in the historic Mikey Stadium. So have a great day there with the Veteran Golf Association. Be Navy.
Let's give a big round of applause for Coach Tom Harp.
Yeah, so as we introduce Coach Harp, before we introduce the next coaches, Coach Tom Harp gained his notoriety as a coach as a high school football coach in the state of Ohio. And he got a head coaching job at a place called Massillon High School. Legendary place, has some connections across the gentleman that you're going to meet here. Massillon High School, he won some state championships, and he gained so much credibility for what he did and how he raised young men that Coach Red Blake from West Point sent his offensive coordinator down to meet this coach at Massillon High School and said, we need a coach who can develop young men, who knows how to coach ball, who can coach wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs. Go find me somebody. And they went and found Coach Harp and pulled Coach Harp from the high school ranks up to coach with the most legendary Army football coach, Red Blake, to coach a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback at West Point. So Coach Harp, we'll talk more about his incredible career here, but
let's give a big round of applause for Coach Tom Harp. It's an honor to introduce our next panelist, the former head coach for the Miami Dolphins, Coach Cam Cameron.
We want to fail forward fast. I want guys going out in this game not being afraid to fail. But if you fail forward. What does that mean? Well, if you're failing forward, that means you're failing, but you're learning. And then you got to learn fast.
In football, success doesn't always start under the lights. Sometimes it's built quietly, in meeting rooms, on practice fields, in the details most people never see. That's where Cam Cameron made his mark. Long before the headlines, he built his reputation as a teacher of the game, developing quarterbacks, studying defenses, and designing offenses built to adapt and attack. And when that work met opportunity, it showed. In San Diego, the Chargers' offense became one of the most dynamic in the NFL, explosive, efficient, relentless. LaDainian Tomlinson delivered one of the greatest seasons in league history, an MVP year that rewrote the record books, and the offense around him didn't just perform. It set the standard. Coach Cameron would go on to serve briefly as head coach of the Miami Dolphins, where he would continue to have a profound impact on the players and staff around him. And his next chapter would prove just how lasting that impact could be. In Baltimore, Cam Cameron helped shape an offense built for January football, physical, disciplined, and built to win when it mattered most. Working with Joe Flacco, helping develop a young quarterback into a champion, and contributing to a team that would reach the top of the sport, a Super Bowl title. Because legacy in football isn't always about where you stand in the moment. It's about the influence you leave behind, the players you develop, the systems you build, the standard you carry with you everywhere you go. And over a lifetime in the game, Cam Cameron has done exactly that.
Let's give a big round of applause for Coach Cam Cameron. It's an honor to introduce our final guest panelist of the evening, Coach Urban Meyer.
It's so easy to be average. You know it as well as I know it. You just practice, and it's first day, cheering and all that kind of stuff, and I still saw average. We don't want to coach average. I don't want to be around you. Why be around average? Did you push yourself to be great today? Did you do it? If you didn't do it, you lost today. We ain't got many days to lose.
The teams under Urban Meyer didn't just win. They defined eras. When he stepped onto the field as head coach, there was a standard and an expectation that every player would rise to something greater. Because for Meyer, it was never just about the scoreboard. It was about culture, identity, legacy. And wherever he went, that legacy followed.
You're either a competitor or you're not. You either are or you're not. If you're a competitor, the guy that can't eat right now because you're so pissed, and if you have that same pain in your neck, in your gut, in your legs, in your heart, and in your mind, you're gonna try to hurt everybody you play. I mean, hurt them. I mean, you like trying to steamroll people because we're on a mission. You either are or you're not. And if you are, show it today.
Urban Meyer is one of the most successful college football coaches of the modern era. A three-time national champion, winning titles at Florida and Ohio State, he's one of the few to reach the top at multiple programs. He led teams to over 180 career wins, multiple undefeated seasons, and built dominant programs all over the country. At each stop, he didn't just win, he transformed programs into national contenders. And in doing so, he cemented his place among the most impactful leaders in the history of the game.
Did you push yourself to be great today?
Let's give a big round of applause the 3-time national champion, Hall of Fame football coach, Coach Urban Meyer.
Man, I don't know about any of y'all there, but I am ready to run through a wall right now after watching those videos. Gents, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for supporting VGA. Thanks for supporting RiseUp. I want to deviate a second from the kind of question list we had. I want to start with your individual coaching stories because I've been so blessed to count Coach Harp and Coach Cameron as not only mentors but friends of mine for the last couple of years as we endeavored to start RiseUp, and I was introduced to Coach Cameron through all of the service that he does for this community around here. I got introduced to him, and we started talking ball, and I started learning from that day, and I continue to learn, and he continues to teach from that mindset and that belief of we are always becoming, we're never arriving, and I'm still becoming, right? And so, I'd love for Coach Cam to start here and share the story of how he got into coaching, because that helps really introduce Coach Harp here and really get this conversation going.
Well, it started, I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, loved football, and my parents got divorced when I was in 3rd grade, and we moved to the north side of town, and I started playing the game of football, and fell in love with football, and then all of a sudden I came home one night. This will tell you a little bit about our man, Coach Harp, over here. And there's a man in our apartment sitting in the couch with my mom, and introduced ourselves. Well, then I figured out it was Coach Harp that had been the head coach at Duke, and he invited me to go to. At the time, he was the running back coach at the Naval Academy, and he invited me to come to go to Annapolis with him. And long story short, we spent a couple of weeks together, having a male role model in my life. Again, everybody, Pat, you mentioned standards. Andy, you mentioned standards. They started putting standards in my life. Now, he'll tell you I was a spastic on the way to reform school before he came along. True? But
you take all my lines.
But got a chance to meet Roger Staubach, started wearing number 12, and long and the short of it, he winds up going to Terre Haute, Indiana, to be the head coach at Indiana State. I started hanging around the football office and starting the equipment room like most coaches' kids do, and cleaning towels and cleaning out lockers and picking up tape off of the fields, all the things that you do. Then I got to start working in with the individual drills and just fell in watching him coach. He's a great coach. He cared about his players. Many of you probably don't know, he turns 99 in November. And I don't want to take up too much time, but I will say this. Pete Dawkins calls him every other month to this day. Now, he was in his 20s when he coached Pete Dawkins. That tells you about the way his players feel about him. And then, so I fell in love with the game of football, being around him and someone that put standards into my life and just made me a better person. And no coach luckier in any level of football than Cam Cameron. And it all started with Tom Harp.
That's right. Pete Dawkins, the last Heisman-winning quarterback for Army, for West Point, was coached by Coach Harp here. Coach Harp, so what I wanted Cam to start with that story was what strikes a chord for, I envision this young man without a father in his home, who needed a father in his home and who needed direction in his life. And then you walk into that. I'd love for you to kind of talk about your thoughts there, meeting Cam and then raising Cam, and then what got you into coaching and earned you that reputation for developing young men.
Well, he needed help. He was young. He was a youngster, and going into junior high school out at Terre Haute, Indiana, and he was an outstanding athlete in junior high school, and played football, played basketball, and all of that. But his hair got a little bit too long for a while. copied all of the stars' actions like most kids that age do. They like to mimic the pros and the great college players. And so I would go, his mother and I would go to these football games, these basketball games. Of course, a lot of these football games I would miss because I was coaching myself, but we'd go to those games and finally got him to cut his hair and a few things like that. But I think that to be a little more specific, I think there's so many things that with a young guy like that you need to do. That's one of the reasons I think this program with Rise Up is such a fantastic program, that they're getting coached at a very young age by coaches who are trained to coach, not just some guy off the street that came in and said, I want to coach a football team, but the things like, an example, little things make a big difference. I remember one day the leaves were getting pretty big in the yard, and I said to Cam, why don't you go out there and rake those leaves? And he said, okay, I will. He was watching something on TV, and so a little time passed, and I said, Cam, I want you to go out and rake those leaves. He said, I will. So a little bit later, I got up and went out, got a rake, started raking the leaves myself. He saw me raking the leaves. So he comes around, I'm going to do that. I said, no, you're not. You're going back in the house, you're going to sit on that chair, and you're going to watch television the rest of the afternoon. I'm going to rake the leaves. Well, that hurt him more than anything else. And that was in my purpose in mentioning that is just a simple little thing like that made a big difference in how he thought about things and following directions and doing things of that nature. So, but he turned out to be pretty good, and I'm proud of him.
You never dreamed you were going to come to a banquet and listen to a 99-year-old guy talk about a 65-year-old guy. What the heck?
Well, anyhow, he made out, and now he's pretty much taken care of me since his mother's passed away, and I still live by myself, but he comes by, and when I call him and say for about the fourth time, I've got to get back on you again. That's the third time I've asked you to come over and hook up that sprinkler. But anyhow.
You won't wash up the front porch of yours and clean up the front of that house.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that answer your question?
Love it. You know, national treasure right here. That's what we want to get the most out of. You know, Coach Meyer, I kind of will transition to you. You know, finding, you know, incredible success at every program that you've coached. You know, we want to hear about your blueprint for that, some of the mechanisms for coaching and teaching and developing young men. But if you wouldn't mind starting with what inspired you to get into coaching? What inspired you to start building that blueprint?
I think like a majority of most of the coaches that I've come in contact with, we were blessed along the way that I grew up in east of Cleveland, and I had the greatest coaches that you can imagine. I had a great father, I had a great mother. Sports and academics were everything. Our country was everything. So I see some of this world we're living in right now and what's being taught, and I feel for that. And one of my, things I've always had a passion for is that young kid that comes from the awful home, goes to an awful high school, and gets labeled as a bad kid. I had the perfect life. I mean, my father was an Army veteran. My sister went to the Air Force. He was a chemical engineer. My mom was a refugee from East Germany, and we loved our country. We loved the hard work. We loved academics, and we loved team sports. I don't get that. That's all I knew. And so I wanted to play like most of us wanted to play as long as I can. The genetics finally took over, and I wasn't going to be a pro. I did play pro baseball for a minute, and they got cut quickly. But I wanted to coach, and there was no money in coaching back in 1984, 85. It was because I wanted to pour back into players like people poured into me. And that was the greatest fulfillment I've had in my lifetime as a coach, is when I see not so much the kid that comes from everything, but that kid comes from nothing. And he looks at myself, or he looks at our staff, and I can see, you can see that person. He's hanging on by a thread, and you go grab him. And that's where I think this is what my father taught me. Love is not soft. Love is really hard.
Let's go.
If you love someone, you see them doing, it's not okay. And I would get into a lot of parents, and I'd say that, it's not time for a group hug. It's time for an ass kicking right now. And sometimes the media doesn't like that. I actually love that because it worked for me. And I've seen it work for many of our players that with kids are kids, that's why God calls them kids. You need something to hold on to, and the first line of defense are mom and dad. Some, unfortunately, it doesn't work real well. The next line of defense is called teachers and coaches. Amen. And that's what happened to me, and I had great parents, but also I had a group of coaches all the way through my lifetime how about this? All three of my children played Division I sports. All three. 2 volleyball players and a college football and college baseball player. All three of my kids played, and my daughter, one of the greatest interviews she ever gave at Georgia Tech, she's a volleyball player, and she said, I learned so much more in a volleyball court than I ever learned in any classroom. I would mandate young people to play team sports. It doesn't solve all problems, but it solves all problems if you learn how to operate on a team.
No doubt. Well, you kind of jumped right into that. When you get those new players from the broken home, from the broken school, from a broken system, what was your blueprint? What was your first approach? You talked about accountability, tough love. What were some of the specifics of that blueprint that you went after for character development specifically?
Well, the media would have, times where, I'd get a young guy and he wouldn't do the right thing. And there's, whenever you're in a situation like that, as an employer like that, as a father, as a coach, when they don't do the right thing, and the media wants to get rid of them. And I had a young person I actually got rid of because I had a rule that you don't hit women, which that's our core value number 2. Number 1 was honesty, and I got rid of the kid. And I love this kid. I love this kid more than, one of my favorite kids of all time. Beautiful smile. A heart of gold, and he got in a really bad relationship. Doesn't have a father. He had a mother, aunt, and grandmother. It was one of those situations, and God bless them. They were just trying to raise this kid, and he got caught up in the streets, and this girl, and he pushed her, and I got rid of him. And he went on to another college, and then a year later commit suicide. And that broke my heart, because I know if he was under our wing, that would have never happened. And I made a comment. I said, we will never, ever get rid of a kid. And the media had fun with it. We had some kids do some bad stuff. I said, I'm not getting rid of that kid. I'll take the hit for that one, because I just know what's out there. And in some walks of life, I look around here, some people might know that. It's awful when you walk in, and you've done that. You walk in a kid's home and you're like, what in the hell are we doing here? And then you go into a high school and you're like, what are you doing? This is a 15, 16-year-old kid what does that 15, 16-year-old, he doesn't always need a group hug. He needs direction, he needs focus, he needs a mission statement. And if you don't have that, unfortunately, you see bad things happen.
Coach Cam, I'm going to ask you the same question, character development. Where does that start for you? How does that blueprint look for you?
Well, it starts with what are you looking for, and it obviously doesn't apply to the youth level. But when you're recruiting, you're bringing them to your campus. There's certain things you're looking for. You're looking for kids that want to work hard. You're looking at their backgrounds. But when it's all said and done, and now you're the person they're looking to. I think Missy, my wife in the back, one thing that we felt like. Especially as a position coach, you can't necessarily do it always as a head coach, but the bottom line, it takes time. You got to get to know them. You get to know them in recruiting and all those things, but now you bring them into your home. You start to understand more about the way they've been raised and where all the voices are in their life. I know that's a little bit. I have a son coaching at Illinois right now, and the biggest challenge they have just in helping these kids develop is all the voices they have in their life these days. But just starting out is you've got to give a great example, and most of the kids I coached, and actually my dad was on my staff at one point in time. So you got your dad around, you got your family around. I wound up, was very fortunate, like you, Urban, having 2 sons that played college football, And I'm sure a big part of that was the quality of kids that came in our home. And we're all just kind of working together. We're raising our family. We're helping raise somebody, you know, the old saying, what, it takes a village, all those kind of things. Well, once those standards are set, all the things that really you and Pat were talking about earlier, those standards are set. Now it's about being consistent. Well, you got to know where they come from. You got to know where they, you know, what has been their experience and how can you help them through. We can tell stories all night, couldn't we, about some of the guys you've already mentioned. But I would say being a great example, and then just staying involved in their life and listening to, you know, the issues that they may be dealing with.
And I love that. And I just want to point out, too, Cam's got a son who is currently serving on active duty. He graduated West Point, first lieutenant down in South Carolina right now, serving our country. And so I know it means a lot to you, Cam, this whole community, and how that ties back together the game of ball. So thank you for raising an incredible family for both of you guys. Coach Harp, I'm going to come to you next. You know, when I first got to know you and I started doing my research into your background, I think one thing that was unequivocal from your high school days to all of the different college stops you've been to was, you know, everyone that spoke about you said that you were one of the best and one of the originals at actually developing kids and developing young men and developing their character really, really early on in their lives. And so I want you to kind of speak to why that's important to you, how you did that, and then, you know, the gold in that is if you wouldn't mind sharing some stories about some of the players and some of the coaches and some of the experiences that you've had that are just legendary in the game of football.
Well, when I was coaching in high school, the first job I had, Urban mentioned a moment ago something about the money back in the, what was it, Urban? What years? 80s. Well, you can go back into the 50s and see what they were paying. My first coaching job, I coached football, basketball, baseball, and started a track program. Got 2 classes of American history, 2 of government, and a noonday intramural program.
And what they pay you?
And I got paid $2,800 a year.
Let's go.
So, anyhow, that was a good start. And I thought, boy, this is a great profession to be in. But to be more specific about your question, when you start in high school like that, the kids are, if they're out for football and you get them out for football, some of them you have to ask to come out for football because they're big farm kids or something like that. And they don't know a whole lot about the game. They don't know a whole lot about a lot of things. And so I say we, me and my one assistant in that first coaching job, would hold meetings with the kids, and we would talk about a lot of things other than football. And they were things about what football would do for you, not about the techniques. And we said, hey, guys, it's a sport. There's 11 of you on a team. You have one objective. That's to do the very best you can and win. You learn to depend on your teammates. You learn to get up off the ground when you've got beaten or defeated. You learn to win with grace. And then but there's no way to get there on an easy track. It's a very, very difficult game. Times you'll be laying on the, and even when we got into college coaching, and I would talk to them about the fact, spring practice, they'd be laying there, and we'd run them until they could hardly stand up, and then we'd say, okay, we're going to do another series of calisthenics, and you'd be face down on the ground, and I used to tell them, I said, when you feel like you can't go any farther, just turn your head to the left and see what the guy's doing beside you, and then turn back to the right and see what he's doing, and you'll find out he's suffering the same as you are. So you're all suffering together, and when it all comes out, you know, there's nothing more wonderful and happy than a winning locker room. When you're in that winning locker room, everything is great. By the same token, in a losing locker room, everything is desperate and sick and sad and crying and all that. But you get up. You have to get up. And so I preached that to them all the time, and they worked and worked and worked. And then we had a lot of rules too. I mean, we made them stay 9 o'clock curfew on game night, during football season. No drinking, no smoking, all the things that every coach back in those days would start out with. And we just maintained those rules, and if the guy broke them, we brought him in and gave him a chance one more time, and that one more time was broken, why, he was off the team. So I feel like, you know, we talk about these things, and there was a question I think I read in one of the panels that you'd printed out of something about if you're coaching and your players, are you a successful coach if your player doesn't make the pros? Well, if that be the case, there's thousands and thousands of coaches in this country that don't. I don't base my success as a coach now, after how many years it's been since I coached, but a bunch of them. I don't base it on all of that. And there's a lot of things today that I look back on that I thought were so important back when I was coaching as a football coach, that today they are different. They seem different to me. Things like the phone calls I get, or the texts I get, text messages I get, the visits I get. I've got several guys, as Kay mentioned a little bit ago, that call me every month. I got guys that come through here, stop by the house. There are guys that send me texts and tell me about all the things they're doing, and it's the way those guys have the way those guys have turned out are more important to me now than actually winning a game was to me now.
It's fantastic. I'll turn it over to the coaches here. Coach Meyer, do you want to answer that as well? Like, how do you measure success from the guys that didn't go pro and weren't Hall of Famers or Super Bowl champions? You know, talk about success off the field and success throughout the rest of your players' lives.
Yeah, it's shocking when you start to, and I mentor kids in Sarasota now. We did something at Ohio State called Real Life Wednesdays, because I saw near the end of my career the deterioration of academia. I saw what was being taught, and I really was disgusted, quite honestly, by it. You know, there was a time where, you know, I thought fundamentals of success were taught because they were taught to me, and the core of the 5 disciplines that we teach and we did at Ohio State, because eventually we just started teaching ourselves. And that was fiscal responsibilities, leadership, communication, conflict resolution, and career paths. And I believe in this incredible country that you have served and Pat has served, there's no country like this. You become an expert at those 5 disciplines, you can live your life. And you don't have to rely on government assistance. When I saw that, that's not the time to do all this, but I've done a lot of studying of this. It's shocking how many people in this country rely on our government. Why? Take care of yourself. How do you take care of yourself? But that's our job as teachers and coaches and parents to educate that person. So I took it, and I hammered our staff. Earl Bruce, I worked for Woody Hayes was still alive at the time, but Earl Bruce was my coach at Ohio State when I was a grad student. And how about this? I don't want to be long, but my first staff meeting, I'm 21 years old, and Woody Hayes is sitting right there. Earl Bruce comes walking in. I'm a Buckeye my whole life. I'm a grad student, and he comes in, and I won't use the language because we're a mixed company here, but back then the language is awful. And he says, you write this down. Number 1, premium placed on education. If your players don't graduate, I'm going to fire you. You can. There's no iPads and iPhones back then, but you had to know in a little note card in your wallet you kept of every player's GPA, every player's course schedule, when he had exams, his tutors' names. If they didn't graduate, I'm going to fire you. So premium placed on academics. Second thing, toughness. You know, we're going to be a tough team. I want your team. Living life is tough. It's not soft. So it's our opportunity to teach these young people to be tough and to fight through adversity. And then finally, team. There's nothing more greater than team. So think about that. That was 1986. The next 38 years of my career, I had the 3 principles that I lived the same, because I believe in premium placed on education. In this country, you get a good education, not a fake one, a good education.
You understand. You're a tough person. And I'm not talking about tough. I mean like tough. You can be a good husband and a good father and make those tough decisions and be a tough person. And then it's all about team. It's all about helping your teammate, helping your brother. If you can teach those three principles, and that's how did I measure success? The ones that learn those three are doing great. The ones that didn't are struggling.
It's powerful.
Urban, I of course from Ohio and followed Woody and.
Of course you are.
And in fact, he was coaching at Denison when I was at Muskingum, and he's always been tough. And going to his clinics up there, it was tough. And when you were explaining what you meant by tough, and it reminded me of when I was coaching at West Point. You think if you think tough is tough, they remodeled the football offices, and in my little cubby hole, they pulled a radiator off the wall, and a little old book fell down on the floor, and they tossed it over on my desk, and it was a book written by Pop Warner, who was the great old coach at the Carlisle Indians. One of his great players was Jim Thorpe, yeah, and the great Olympian. But the book was entitled Defensive Down Lineman Techniques. And on the first page, in each page, it had a diagram of the technique, a diagram of the movement, and it was entitled. And the first page showed a down lineman over the center, and the title was Two-Handed Uppercut with Blow to the Head. Second page was Bloomer Sidestep with Blow to the Head. So every technique in the book had a concluding technique of blow to the head, which obviously that was ruled out.
Is there a guy in America luckier than me to grow up with that every single day?
That is incredible. What an incredible story. Coach Cam, over to you. Measuring success off the field, measuring character off the field.
Well, I think it's now that we're kind of out of the game and there's a lot of stuff behind us. Just what my dad said. Looking back to how successful guys have been. At Michigan, Bo came from Ohio State, from Woody and Earl Bruce, all those guys with the same philosophy that Urban was talking about. If your players didn't graduate, that's an issue. And I was fortunate to, I'd say 90+% guys graduated, and they're all successful to this day. And then you get a chance to, thank you, to be, now there is a downside to that because at Indiana, the reality is we led the nation in graduation, but we won 5 games and they fired me. So let's just keep this. At one point in time, they did say, what is it, academics number 1 and football number 2. But on a serious side, it's everything that's been said tonight. Just spending time with guys, setting standards, following up. And every opportunity is an opportunity to teach. Obviously, I don't know many great teachers that aren't great listeners, but you're not sitting around just listening to players all the time. That ain't what you do. And so, but I think communication is a huge part of the whole thing.
Thanks, Coach, for sharing that. I don't know if you guys caught this so far. Coach, you have something you wanted to add there? I always want to let you speak when you're going to jump in.
Anytime you want.
Give me 1 second. This is the true treasure that we're here for, but I just want to highlight, I don't want the opportunity to miss, if you hear the names and the legends that these men have learned from and have grown up with, are guys that I grew up reading about and hearing about and hearing stories about. And these guys stood on the fields with those men, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler. Coach Cam hasn't told you, but his first coaching job was actually with Bobby Knight, Indiana basketball. When you talk about these legends, that these guys have walked the fields with and observed and learned and built young men behind, it is incredible, and it is priceless, and it's a national treasure that we and I want to preserve. And so I'll use that to kind of turn over to Coach Harp here, because I've heard some of these stories. And we were talking about at West Point, walking the fields with General Douglas MacArthur and Red Blake. You know, I don't know if you know the speech about on the field of friendly strife, you know, better days, blood is shared. I'm going to mess it up.
Friendly strife are sown the seeds that on other fields and other days will bear the fruits of victory.
Amen.
Boom!
That quote is attributed to General Douglas MacArthur from the time where he was walking the sidelines on the football field with Coach Harp. Coach Harp was there when that quote, you know, was sewn into football lore forever. So Coach Harp, I want to go back because I love the stories that you shared with me privately, and maybe share some of those Army seasons, undefeated, ranked 1 or 2 in the nation, and then playing Navy. You've got an awesome story about the Navy quarterback being pulled. You want to tell that story, and maybe others that you have that stick in your mind of some of these legends that you've coached with and against?
Well, when I was at West Point, the 5 years I was there, we had a great deal of success, and of course, coaching for Colonel Blake was a great experience. And there are so many great stories that come out of there. For example, I went there in '56, and a couple of guys that were on the squad in '58, Pete Dawkins, Bob Anderson, Bill Carpenter, Bob Novogratz, all four All-Americans on the Army team at that time. And of course, they played and to the extent that we were very successful. But the best thing about coaching at Army was the guys that were on the teams. They were such wonderful, great kids. And in 1955, the Vietnam War broke out, and I went there in '56, and as the kids would graduate, they go off to the war. And the stories that have happened, I've got a couple of stories that I'm probably not going to tell about Bill Carpenter, the lonesome end on that team, the things that he did in Vietnam that got him all kinds of medals, and the same thing with Don Hollander. One of them didn't make it back, and the other one did. But listening to Pat here earlier this evening and watching his operation, it was such an impressive thing, and it made me think about the stories of those two guys, which I won't go ahead and talk about, but they were brutal, and one of them got the Silver Star and the medals. They were just super guys, but I like to get a little bit lighter sometimes, so I was thinking about something here a minute ago that kind of slipped my mind, which these days anymore, something slips my mind every once in a while. But the story you were telling about was Roger Staubach, and Roger was. I tried to recruit him when he was in high school, when I was coaching Army, but he ended up going to a prep school and then on to the Naval Academy. But then I went on to Cornell as the head coach in the Ivy League, and the Ivy League didn't belong in the league with Navy or any of those people, and they still don't. Anyhow, we were scheduled to play Navy at Navy, and we went down to the game, and we were playing, and somehow we're staying in the game pretty good with them. It's like 14-6 going into the fourth quarter, and the Navy coach is going crazy because they ought to be killing us. So he pulled his quarterback. He put in a sophomore kid that nobody knew much about. Final score was 41-6. That was Roger Staubach. So I am here responsible for the birth of Roger's. But you know, there's so many. I have one story. I don't want to dominate this with all these.
Dominate, man.
I have one story. My first year at Duke, we weren't very good, but we started off beating West Virginia and Pitt and Virginia, and thought things were going to work out pretty good. But we had to play Notre Dame the next week, and it was the year that Notre Dame won the national championship. And they had played Carolina earlier in the week, and earlier in the year, and Carolina had been defeated by them, 32-12 or something like that. And I thought, well, if they can play them that good, we ought to be able to do that. So I'm going to gamble on our defense. I know we never stop them with what we're doing. So we gambled on the defense. It worked about 4 plays. And the final score of the game, which is the one thing I've got over these two guys and all their coaching, I got beat worse than either one of them ever got beat. We got beat 64-0. So on the plane back, I said to the coaches, we're not going to even look at these films right now. We're playing Carolina next week. We're going to get ready starting Sunday morning. We're going to get ready. When the plane landed on the tarmac, I got the squad together and I told them, forget about coming in to watch these films tomorrow and do your regular things that we have done, but we're going to get ready for Carolina. So we started working Sunday morning, and that night I called the coaches into a conference room, find out what each one of them was thinking about in preparation for Carolina, and the phone rang. And I picked the phone up and I answered the phone, and I said, football office, Coach Harp. And he said, the person on the other line, on the end of the line, was Sonny Falcone, who was the son of one of my coaches. And he said, Coach Harp, is my dad there? And I said, yeah, just a minute. Well, Carmen happened to be sitting right beside me. I handed him the phone. And the conversation went like this. Hey, son, what's going on? And he said, well, I just sent you $25 last week. He said, what'd you do with it? And he said, well, why would you do that? And he said, well, he said, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. We're busy here, so hang up. And I said, well, Carl, what was that all about? He said, well, it was Sonny. He lost the $25 I sent him. What do you mean lost it? He said, he betted on us against Notre Dame. I said, why in the hell would he do that? He said, the guy gave him 55 points. Go ahead. That's enough of that.
That's your dad.
Coach has got so many stories. If you get time and you live in the area and you have a chance to get to know Coach Harp and spend some time with him, you will get so many more stories like that will make you feel proud to know him and proud to know Coach Cameron and proud to know men like this that have continued to serve other people. And so last question, and then I want to open it up for questions from the audience here, but last question from each of you. As we started this Rise Up Youth League to help change the trajectory of kids in America, what advice would you give to young parents? What advice would you give about youth sports? What advice would you give to us about Rise Up, what we should focus on and where we should give our time? Any advice you'd want to share there? Coach Meyer.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people, where, the group hugs and, it really doesn't matter who wins. I disagree. Our country is built on winning. I'm not ashamed to say, and we raised our children. And when you fail to win, that's okay, but that just means work harder not to not win, or to win. And so we've taught our children that. I watch the way our children raise their children. I go to practice. I get to speak a lot, and I'm not ashamed to say that. And sometimes I hear people say, well, that's not that important. I stop them right there. Yet it's very important. And I'm not saying if you don't win but you go to work the next day to go win. And the minute you lose your target, I think that's where I see problems arise. So yes, we're Americans. We win. We'll always win. And don't be ashamed to say that. So you as a youth coach, do you teach them, the core values of how to live a good life? Absolutely. Do you teach them to win? Absolutely. I think they're tied together.
I love that. you know, we've all been a part of leagues that don't keep score, and it's funny because you find out the kids keep score.
Get out of that league.
That's right. They know. Coach Cam.
Well, I think the one thing I would say is don't be afraid of football. I know there was a lot of concerns by the moms for several years about football, how dangerous it is. It's being played and I think coached in a lot of areas. Obviously, Rise Up is a perfect example from a safety perspective. Trivia question, many of you probably know the answer to this, but some may not. The fastest growing sport in the United States right now. Women's flag football. And it's, so everybody's got an opportunity to be involved in what it's called American football. It's not football, it's American football. We're the only country as a country that plays it, though more countries are playing it. And everything that Irvin has mentioned, everything that my dad has mentioned, all give you opportunities to teach all those things, whether it's to boys, to girls, the team component. You're probably going to spoil us a little bit here, but I've always, when I get a chance to talk to parents around the country, you know what the values are in your home. And there's probably some similarities in this room, but we're all a little bit different. Demand of yourself as parents to go find coaches, no matter how much time and effort it takes, that can reinforce the values of your family that you believe in. And that takes a little work. We were very fortunate all over the country to have, our kids had great coaches. But we weren't sending them to some clown, you know, that didn't understand safety, didn't understand how to teach process versus outcome. However, we wanted them also teaching outcomes, just like you're talking about winning. So just a couple little things there.
Love that, Coach. Thank you. Coach Harp.
Well, I think that they pretty well covered it. The thing that impressed me when I was at the clinic that you had earlier this year or last year, the coaches, every coach that you have in the Rise Up program isn't, as I said earlier, isn't a guy who just came in off the street that thought he was Vince Lombardi and was going to try to coach like Vince Lombardi. They are all taught. They have to be certified. The program for Rise Up is absolutely the most ideal little league type program that, as someone said, Pat said earlier in the evening, is the most outstanding little league team program in America, and I don't think there's any question about it. And so they're getting a start that's right, and I think that the parents that have any hesitation about playing football is, you know, you may get hurt, but you may get hurt walking across the street. But I think that most I can say, I think, is that your program is fantastic, and it's just wonderful to have a crowd like this here tonight that supports it, and it's going to grow and grow and grow. And one of these days, when I'm about 146 or so, we'll see those all over the country.
That means a lot to hear you say that, Coach. It's an honor to have you. Thank you. Thank you. Josh, do we have time for some Q&A really quick? Are we good to do that?
Yeah, so we have some questions out for the audience. Any questions for the coaches up here or for questions for the earlier panelists? Just go ahead and raise your hands. And yeah, yes, sir.
The question is about NIL. What has NIL done to college sports for Coach Meyer and Coach Cam?
Go ahead, Coach.
I've been asked with President Trump asked to be on a commission, and we're currently on it right now. NIL, it's capitalism. So the NCAA made a mistake many, many years ago by not allowing student athletes to make money off their name. And like a lot of things happen, it just goes completely the other way. So NIL in its purest form is an absolute. There's not any citizen in this country should be able to make money off him or her, make money off their name. A gymnast, a tennis player, a football player, a baseball player, you can make money on Instagram or go work at a car dealership and put your name and sign autographs. You should be able to do that. But what's happened is the reflex has been so bad that that's not what's going on. What's going on is they're taking money from donors, putting them in a big pot and paying players without, it's pay for play, which is illegal. And I keep hearing we need more rules. All the rules are in place. There's no law. There's no enforcement. And we saw that at the border. You know, that we don't need more laws. The laws are in place. Enforce the laws, or change laws. You know, that's what has to happen in college sports. But I also learned this: the antitrust exemption we're dead in the water unless Congress approves the NCAA with 2 months ago, I couldn't spell antitrust. I didn't know what it meant, but I've been in these meetings, and antitrust is very hard to get. It hasn't happened very often, and that allows there are 37 different state statutes regarding NIL. So what's that mean? That means you find a friendly judge in a certain state that wants a 6 year of eligibility. Sure, they don't listen to the NCAA. So the game has never been better. I'm sure Cam would. You push play on film. These kids are so good. The teams are so good. The playoff, there's parity. I mean, my gosh, Indiana won a national title. There's parity in this. The playoffs are great. There's more kids graduating because they're not leaving early to go to the NFL because they're staying and making more money. But I do believe society without rules is chaos. College football without rules, eventually it's going to bite us. And I know our president is very set on I am as well. You take away women's sports and non-revenue sports, this country will never be the same. Team sports is the answer. You want your kids to grow up to understand about, you know, the important, you know, diversity and all the things that are really, really important. Go put them on a team sport. They're going to learn like that, much more than they'll learn in a classroom.
Coach Cam.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add. Obviously, Urban is right in the middle of it and doing a great job for us, and it's appreciated. I would think the coaches at some point in time, the whole model might change because I can remember when coaches were leaving, players were stuck, and then obviously I was a beneficiary. I mean, Tom, my dad told you what he made. We were very fortunate financially, didn't get in it. I don't know about you, Urban, but we didn't really get in it for the finances of it. All of a sudden, they start paying coaches. Coaches are bouncing around. Coaches are getting paid, and players can't. So the players, in my view, the coaches cause the issue. They need to get involved in the process, and I think collectively, they've got to come up with an answer. Do I have that answer? I don't, but I know exactly what you're saying is true. If it doesn't get solved, it's going to have a huge impact on all the sports in our country.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Coach.
Next question. Any other questions? Coach, discipline and faith.
I did a study that, because I just saw the evolution that was happening with not only some of our teams, but other coaches that were dealing with issues. And so I came up with a theory that, you know, you recruit a young man that comes in. The mom and dad don't have to be together. And I'm not preaching to people. You asked my opinion, I'm giving it to you. That, like the Bosa, I coached the Bosas. The mom and dad weren't married. They were divorced, but they were both engaged. And when the young person turns 17, 18, 19, he needs that. She needs that. That's not maybe, no, they do. They need that because they're going to make some mistakes along their journey like we're humans. We make mistakes. Where does that coach go when that mistake is made? If there's nowhere to go, like they call that family and say, let's get in here, time for a family meeting. When you have that family meeting, the success rate is astronomically high because we're all engaged. We're going to fix this problem. When you don't have that, that's a problem. The other thing I found out, and I used to put circles on my desk, when you take a player that comes from a really tough situation, and there's no faith, there's no moral compass, there's nothing, no higher reaching that you can share with that player, the chance of success is under 10%. That was 38 years. I was in the laboratory for 38 years. When that player comes from a non-structured background and has zero faith, not going to make it. You take that other kid that comes, once again, don't have to be together, don't have to be Leave It to Beaver, whatever, doesn't have to be that perfect home, but if they have something at home and then they throw faith in there, you're talking about a 9 out of 10, that kid's going to be fine. because he has something to hold on to. And I don't really understand why that's that hard to understand. And I would share that with our teams every year with our coaching staff, and we would go out and recruit. It reached the point where you would really be cautious about recruiting someone that was absent in those two areas. And I hated that. But we have a job to win games. It's not to save the world, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Can I add something there? Really quick, you brought up a fantastic point. The Army, about 5 years ago, went through this big deep dive into why we have the suicide rates that we have. And we sought outside counsel to come in and tell us, what are our problems? And we sought behavioral psychologists and some of the leading adult psychologists, in the United States to come in and tell us. And the first thing they kind of told us was like, you guys need to fix your chaplain program. What's going on with your chaplain program? You've neutered it. They're not talking about spirituality and purpose anymore. They're kind of talking about, other sectarian type of belief systems. And they came and told us, you got to fix this, because there's a term in psychology. I want to frame this, because in Rise Up, the content and the resources that we deliver are not about football. We have psychologists from Army Special Operations Command on our board advising us of how to build these building blocks for young kids, right? So we've gone down the research in this, and there's a term in psychology called subjective well-being. Subjective well-being is, if I ask you right now, and I want you to think about the answer in your head, on a scale of 1 to 10, how content are you with your life? 10 being you are very content, you have an abundance of joy, and you feel happy and peaceful in your life at the maximum extent. That's a 10. A 1 is you're feeling the worst, right? So across multiple cultures and across multiple studies, when psychologists ask people these questions, the people that score the highest, like towards the 10 marks, they started to go down the list of like, man, why are these people that score 10s? What are the factors? And the top 3 factors, number 1, is spirituality. It's spirituality. There's a belief that there's a reason that you exist on this earth and there's a purpose for your life. So people that are doing really well in life, that's the number 1 factor. And then number 2 is close personal relationships. And number 3 is spending time outdoors. Now there's a longer list of other things that contribute to well-being, but those are the top 3. I mean, that's profound. And I tell you that because when we talk to families and we talk to civic leaders about Rise Up, they hear the way we speak and they say like, man, it sounds like a religious organization. You're saying blessings and ministry and faith and service and, prayer and all these things. Is this a religious organization? And they're kind of nervous, right? And we step back and we say, well, here's what psychology says. We told you what we're all about. And the psychology says that if you don't have a sense of purpose for your life and a reason that you exist, you're not going to do well. And it's been proven over and over again. It's been proven in our time in the Army. It's been proven in our time with kids. And I wanted to share that with you about, a fantastic question on the intersection of discipline and faith and why it's important in our lives. So thanks, guys.
Let's give a big round of applause for all of our panelists. Coach, thank you. Couple of final words. Patrick, any final words from you, brother?
No, just going back to the Hawaiian Hostage Rescue Raid, every single man was engaged in their unique problem set to, bring those men home. So anytime our boots hit the ground, we're ambassadors of the American way of life. And so there's another man that was on that mission, Todd Adams. He was my sergeant major. He's over there in the corner hiding out. And so,
Todd, let's go.
But to bring it back to reality, I'm a washed-up commando, and now I'm a youth football coach. So thank you.
Andy, go ahead, buddy.
One of the best youth football coaches, too. I just want to wrap up with an abundance of gratitude for each and every one of you for being here tonight and for supporting both of these causes. It shows your belief and your investment in something greater than yourself, a belief of our democracy, a belief of our country, and willing to do something about it and take action towards it. Because there are a lot of people that talk about it, and there are not a lot of people that be about it and that do about it and take action about it. And so for each and every one of you to be a part of that, super thankful. And then, finally, our Rise Up team, too. We've got so many people that volunteer their time. Rise Up is a community of nothing but volunteers. And there's so many people here that are part of that. My wife, Erica, and Lauren, and Coach Till, and his wife, and Travis, and our whole team. Christy, thank you guys for everything you've done to support Rise Up. And then to Josh for putting on this incredible event. This is amazing, man. And this was all Josh's idea. Josh and I were part of a informal book club where the first rule was you don't read books.
Facts.
I got invited by a football
Stan
coach.
Herman. There we go.
Stano.
First rule of book club, no books.
I got invited by a football coach to that. It was like, Andy, you should come and talk about Rise Up. So I did. And the first person to speak after I talked, their whole mission there was to like have people come in and speak, and then they were going to figure out how they could help in their individual gifts and talents, right? First person to talk is Josh, and he's like, Andy, I love everything about what you're speaking about, what you stand for. Let's talk after this, and I want to help. And he's been helping ever since. This event was his idea.
Yeah.
You know, he's put this whole thing together. Josh, thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Look, I want to say, first of all, go ahead. Pat, you're good. I love you. I met the Rise Up family through Pat and his passion for his kids and being a coach in the Rise Up program. And when I started the VGA 12 years ago, I didn't have much help. That's a fact. You know, I spent 20 years down at Fort Bragg and stumbled upon a community that I really, really love, and that's Pinehurst. And there's a lot of friends out here, J.J. Jackson, John, Chairman Bob Peel. I don't know if you guys know Bob Peel. Can we give Bob Peel a big round of applause? I've been embraced by a community of friends that I can't ever thank you guys enough for. And when I met Andy and what he's trying to do with the Rise Up youth community through football, there's a lot of parallels. There's a lot of parallels to what we're trying to do with the VGA and, you know, saving lives through the game of golf for veterans. The veterans, you know, the game of golf is just a platform. We don't care if you are good at golf or you're bad at golf. It doesn't matter. We just want to get you out of your house and around like-minded individuals. And what Andy's doing with our kids, you know, spear-pointed by leaders like Medal of Honor recipient Thomas Payne, it's incredible, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so, you know, Todd Adams and his wife Kelly and all the things that they're doing with this program, we want to be a part of it. And so I wanted to introduce it to our community at Forest Creek because I feel that it's imperative that we have young leaders of character moving into our future, and that's what Andy's doing, right? So, you know, I want to thank all of you guys here tonight for supporting this mission. On all of your tables, there's a QR code. You know, you can scan the QR code. You can donate to our causes. Everything that you donate tonight is going to be split 50-50 with the Rise Up team and the VGA team. But more importantly, you guys can make a difference, right? Everybody in this audience can make a difference for what we're trying to do for the youth community and the VGA community and our veterans. And I'm proud to be a part of it. So thank you guys for being here tonight. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to our coaches, Coach Urban Meyer, Coach Tom Harp, Coach Cam Cameron. If you guys could stand up, let's give you guys a big round of applause. Say thank you to my good friend Patrick Payne, who is finishing up his master's degree at Harvard University, and I know it's been a lot to ask you, Patrick, to be here over the next couple of days, but thank you for being here, man. It means an awful lot to this community and to the future leaders of our country. So thank you. I want to say thank you to CIBC. If your whole table, if you could stand up, CIBC, thank you guys. the Canadian Bank that's come down here to support this event. First of many, guys, thank you guys for being here. And Andy and your entire team, thank you guys for everything that you're doing for our youth. It's an honor to be a part of it, and I look forward to doing much more with you guys. So safe travels to everyone here tonight, and Mary and your entire team here at Forest Creek, thank you for hosting us, and we couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this night. Very special.